Right, good afternoon everybody. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Jane Wakiwaka. I'm the Head of Sustainability for Real Estate at the Crown Estate, and I'm here together with John Eaglesham, who's the Managing Director of Barr Gazetas. We're here to talk about health and well-being in workspace, not only just looking at the design side of things, but how we're using it in operation, talking about our experiences as a landlord, developer, designers, and also from an occupier point of view as well. For those of you who don't know much about the Crown Estate, we are an independent organisation. We're not owned by the Queen. We were established by an Act of Parliament created in 1961, although the actual Crown Estate has been around for hundreds of years. We are accountable to Parliament, but we have a very clear mandate, which is to invest and manage our assets in a way that delivers commercial return on a 1-3-5-year agreed target. We're unique in that 100% of our profits go directly to Treasury, and in the last 10 years that was around £2.8 billion. We have a very diverse portfolio. Just a little bit of background. I'm focusing on our central London portfolio today, but we have an extensive regional portfolio which comprises shopping centres, out-of-town retail parks, business parks, etc., as well as rural agriculture, as well as managing the UK coast and seabed, so leasing the seabed for offshore wind. But in terms of our central London portfolio, this amounts to, it's the most valuable part of our organisation, and it comprises a range of retail, dining, commercial offices, and residential as well. Our land ownership, this is what we own in central London as our core West End, so it comprises the entire freehold of Regent Street, so from BBC Centre down to Piccadilly, so about a mile long, and about 50% of St James's. I think when most people think about Regent Street, they'll think of the retail side of things, but there's actually a significant commercial office holding that we have. There's over 2.5 million square foot that we're looking at, offices ranging from very small right to the very large international headquarters like Twitter. We've been also undertaking quite a lot of regeneration, so in the last 15 years, if you've kind of walked around Regent Street and St James's, it has changed quite significantly. I think two things just to note. We are quite unique in that we are very long-term landowners. As I said, we've been around for hundreds of years, so we can take a very long-term approach in how we invest in our assets. We're not here for shareholder prices or anything like that. And the other thing is that we have a very contiguous portfolio, so what we're able to do is look at a portfolio of buildings as opposed to one individual building in isolation. So why are we looking at health and well-being? What's the importance of health and well-being? I think if we take a bit of a step back and look at sort of the global economy, the well-being industry itself, they're estimating, is worth currently over $4.5 trillion, which is a significant amount of money. Of that, I think there's certain sectors that are very mature, like healthcare, fitness, wellness, tourism. Where does workspace well-being actually lie? So it is much smaller, it's at 45 billion, but according to the Global Wellness Institute, there's still a huge area for growth. So only 10% of all global organizations actually offer any form of workplace wellness, but there is a demand for it, and they're estimating that workspace wellness as an industry will grow from 48 billion to 66 billion by 2022, so a significant jump. And why are people actually demanding more from workspace and their physical environment? And I think if we just, again, take a step back and look at things like what's happening in central London, if you live in central London, you'll know that there's been so much press around things like air quality and how poor air quality is in London, how that's actually impacting people's health. I think, these are just some probably outdated news headlines now, and even last week we had a new study that's come out showing that poor air quality leads to poor life expectancy by up to 3 years. So we know that it's now more in the public conscience. People want to know what the physical environment is doing, both externally and internally. And as a consequence, our customers are also demanding more from us. They want to know how their buildings are performing and how it's actually impacting their own health. From a real estate perspective, again, things are changing, things have been changing. Over 5 years ago, I don't really think well-being was very mainstream, but we've had things like the WELL standard that's come out, as well as Reset. Green's taking more of an aggressive stance on health and well-being, and there's been more and more studies trying to link health, well-being and productivity to the built environment. we're also finding increasingly that the investors are wanting to find out a lot more about health and well-being. So you have the Global Real Estate Sustainability Benchmark, GRESB, are also now integrating or have integrated health and well-being as part of their standard ESG questions. So what have we been doing as the Crown Estate? So I'm just going to canter through 3 different case studies, and we've been basically trialing the WELL standard in slightly different ways just to understand how it actually works. So I'm going to start off talking about how we've approached WELL as an occupier. The Crown Estate's current headquarters are St James's Market. We've been there for nearly 2.5 years. And we chose to move here, and when we chose to look at the design of our workspace, we had 3 core values that we were working to. We wanted our office space to be progressive and professional. We wanted it to enable collaboration and agile working. And finally, we wanted to put people at the heart of the design, so taking a people-centric approach. And just to provide a bit of background to St James's Market, this wasn't a building that was specifically built for us as the Crown Estate. This is 2 large buildings, commercial office led. This is kind of what it looked like. So it was a Cat A fit out, and it was a great opportunity for us to understand how our customers are facing their own fit out when they come to one of our offices. So we were basically our own guinea pig. It's also worth noting that this building was recently completed at the end of 2016, but it didn't have any sort of WELL standard or anything associated with it because it was designed in advance of the standard coming out. It did achieve BREEAM Excellent, and there were some things about the base build which did contribute to us achieving the WELL, which I'll come on to, but in itself wasn't a WELL building. But in order for us to look at how we would go about designing the building, we wanted to understand how people actually felt about our old office. So we did a pre-leaseman survey, we did a lot of consultation with our staff to understand how they felt about the existing workspace. And it was really clear that our old office wasn't really fit for purpose at all. It wasn't inspiring people to share ideas and collaborate. People didn't feel that the workspace was enabling them to work productively. People weren't proud of their workspace. Although they were proud to work for the Crown, they weren't actually proud to bring people in, and that was really important. And this really gave us a clear idea of what were the things that people wanted from the office space and how can we actually integrate that into how we design spaces. We also looked at what kind of standards should we be looking at. We looked at things like BREEAM. We decided not to go for BREEAM, but we ended up going for the WELL standard. And the reason for that was, A, it was very new. We wanted to understand what it actually meant to apply WELL, so that we could then start to advise our own customers as well if they chose to go down the WELL route. We wanted to see how difficult it was and what the benefit and the value was. There were a lot of things that we did, and we were trying to be as ambitious as possible. But just to be really clear, we didn't throw everything at it. We were really selective about the features that we wanted to go for. So we didn't go for certain things like white noise because we thought that just costed a lot of money but wouldn't bring the right kind of value. We also didn't go for things like organic foods because that would increase the cost of our catering and subsidized meals. But we did look at how it would influence things like our workspace design, for example. So all of the desks were put towards the outer edge of the floor plates, and we looked at different types of meeting rooms, collaboration spaces. I was told by our team that it wasn't actually a very, very difficult job. It required a bit more thought and a little bit more creativity, but in itself wasn't difficult. And I think the other thing that we learned was there's no point in designing spaces if you don't take people along with the journey. And so there was, again, ongoing collaboration. There was a lot of explanations to our staff to understand, so that they understood why certain design decisions had been made. And it was really important that they bought into it as well. What also really helped us that we had little signs kind of dotted around the office showing why we had moss, for example, that it wasn't just something kind of funky looking, but it was there for a purpose. We also did little easy things like encouraging people to take the stairs because we occupy the 1st and the 7th floor, so rather than taking lifts. So it's little things like that we were trying to do. So how did the design help to engage with people, and how do we sort of encourage better behaviors from our staff? I think we were really pleased with the results. One of the things that we were able to achieve, we were the first Europe's first WELL Platinum building. There were only 10 other projects at the time, and it was a great opportunity for us to showcase what we were trying to achieve. And I think it's really important that we were open with what we learnt, things that worked well, things that were a little bit more tricky, and I think that's the only way that we can evolve as an industry. The other main thing was how it actually benefited our staff. So we did a post-Leesman survey, and we were able to demonstrate that actually there was a real positive impact to our staff. The pre-Leesman survey, we were actually below the Leesman benchmark, but post, you can see that it increased significantly by 25 points. We were in the top 2% of all organizations that were sort of participating in the survey. And I think crucially, most people really took to the different types of workspaces. And it took a while as well because people were a bit nervous. We gave up fixed desks, we went to agile working, and we gave people the opportunity to try this out before we moved, and I think people responded to it very well as a consequence. What we also wanted to do then was to look at how we could apply the WELL standard as a developer, and one of the things that we were looking at is how can we apply it to one of our developments to make sure that we weren't creating developments that if a future occupier came in, we weren't prohibiting them from getting the WELL standard. We have our development sustainability principles that are applied to all our projects, and we've most recently updated them to include WELL aspects in it to ensure that our customers benefit from some of the well-being aspects, even if they don't go for the WELL standard as well. But we did initially start by applying it to the MARC, which is a office-led scheme. We chose this building specifically because it's a small building, only 30,000 square foot office with 10,000 square foot retail. It's in a conservation area, so again, we have to be thinking about sort of the appearance of the building. We're quite limited on that site. And it's also a very constrained area as well. So we're looking at a building that's on Jermyn Street. It's diagonally opposite Fortnum Mason, so very tight in terms of the site. And we thought, actually, if we choose a more challenging building as opposed to something that's a blank canvas that you can kind of do all the bells and whistles, actually we have a better opportunity to understand how WELL actually works in this situation. And we did have a lot of lessons learned that came out of it. The scheme itself had already progressed to stage C or stage 3. However, we did find that we didn't have to do a significant amount of rework. The only area that we really struggled with, and we had to be quite creative about, was the healthy entrances, just because we couldn't have two sort of double doors, so we had to kind of come up with a mechanical solution. Again, it was a really important opportunity for us to engage and work in partnership with our teams. It was new to everybody, both from the design team and the contractor, and I think that was quite great because people were open about sort of sharing lessons learned, sharing some of the challenges. It wasn't easy. We had to think about programming of tests around things like leasing and fit out of the retail and the other office areas. But we are pleased to say that we did achieve WELL Gold. We were also able to demonstrate that, and I know this is a bone of contention, that you can have environmental sustainability with well-being, because this building did achieve BREEAM Outstanding as well. We had some great responses from prospective occupiers as well. So people were really interested in the WELL standard. It was the first West End building to achieve WELL as well. So it was a great way to engage with people. And we're really pleased at how quickly it's let. So it's been let to 3 office occupiers. And then finally, and I won't go into too much detail because John will go into this in much more detail than I will, but 1 Heddon Street was the final building that we wanted to do a bit of a test case on. Again, a very different building. It's the first of many for the Crown Estate. In particular, it's the first co-working space that the Crown Estate ever created to Cat B finish, and it was also refurbishment as well. Wellbeing has been a really important part of not just the design, but also the operation of 1 Heddon Street. As you can see on the top right hand, we don't use it just for co-working. We use it to provide wellbeing space for our customers all across our Central London portfolio. So for a number of years, we have been providing a wellbeing program, which include things like yoga classes, boot camps, running clubs, etc. And having Heddon Street means that we've got an additional space to provide to our customers. A lot of our customers don't have the resources or the spaces themselves to do their own wellbeing program, and that's been really well received by our customers. I think last year alone we had over 5,000 customers partaking in various different activities, and it's a really great way for different customers to meet one another as well. I think also, coming back to what our land ownership looks like, we don't look at individual buildings in isolation. And for us, it's really important for us to go through these case studies because it means that we can apply this across our portfolio. But also, I think it's important for us to look at not just what's going on within the workspace, but what can we do to influence health and well-being for our customers beyond the workspace. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of examples here. One of them that we're really pleased and proud about is a partnership that the Crown Estate initiated back in 2014 called Wild West End. And this is essentially working with now 5 of the West End's largest landowners, as well as the GLA, London Wildlife Trust and ARIP. And what we've been doing is, rather than looking at individual buildings in isolation, is looking at the connectivity of the buildings. What we've been trying to do is look at how do we improve the value and the quality as well as the quantum of green space, and how do we educate people about why green space is valuable. So it's not putting in a green roof for the sake of putting in a green roof. Can we actually make it valuable to the customers that can actually use it? As it's been going on since 2014, we have seen a significant increase in green space. So we started off as a Crown Estate with only 50 metres squared of green space. We now have over 3,700 metres squared of green space, which is, I've been told, equivalent to 13 tennis courts. A lot of it you won't actually be able to see because it's at rooftop level. But what's been great is it's been a really interesting way of engaging with our customers, again, providing different types of spaces. Some people don't know that on Regent Street we've had bees for over 10 years, and what we can do is that we can invite our customers up to our rooftops. They can actually see the bees. We also have allotment gardens that some of our customers have been using. I think Barr Gazetas is one of our customers, so they can grow their own herbs, etc. And again, some customers have their own terraces, some don't. Some people may not have actually access to green spaces where they're living. So this is another opportunity for us to promote health and well-being in a slightly different way to our customers as well. And again, the response has been really phenomenal. We can also engage with our customers in lots of different ways. And I think well-being isn't just about design, it is about how it's operating. And we shouldn't just focus on what we have control over, but what we can influence. We have also been working with our retailers. We've been running a freight consolidation scheme for our retail customers since 2009, and that's been aimed at trying to reduce freight and vehicle movement, and that will contribute to not worsening air quality. We've also been doing the same with our waste consolidation as well. So we have over 300 customers involved in our waste consolidation. It means that we're not leaving waste out on the streets. We're able to help our customers because we understand how much they're producing waste-wise, what they can do to improve recycling, so we can actually provide an additional service to our customers. More recently, we've been working with a number of our restaurants across central London on a food waste pledge. We're nearing the end of that food waste pledge at the end of next month, but we're essentially committing to reducing food waste by 25%. And it's been a great way to engage with chefs and also with the general public as well as social media, etc. So we have basically a new audience of people to engage with. And finally, we are really interested in how we engage with the general public as well. Most people don't know that we have roof gardens and things. So what we can do is during events like Summer Streets, where we have traffic-free Sundays, we can actually bring some of the gardens down from the rooftop so people can see what we're doing and really engage with our customers as well. So really, our buildings just create that foundation to be able to enable a better outcome, not just for our customers, but also for people that want to visit as well. And we're ultimately trying to make London an attractive place so that people will continue to want to come and work and live as well. That's it from me. I'm going to pass on to John now, who is going to talk more about 1 Heddon Street and the broader work that Barr Gazetas have been doing.
Right. Thanks, Jane. Thanks, everyone, for listening. So tiny plug about us and then more about the project. So we're based on Regent Street. We're one of the small customers that the Crown Estate have. We've been in the West End for 27 years, so we feel like we know it well. And I suppose we've always been interested in places for people rather than architecture as a standalone product. We're more interested in the people that use it. And that's our happy family on Regent Street. So it's very nice to be invited here to talk about 1 Heddon Street and the well, and a tiny bit of background about us, just to sort of hopefully hopefully give us a standing point for you to realise why we're doing it. So 1 Heddon Street, we're not quite sure whether it's the first well gold or the first well platinum. We're still waiting for the paperwork. But I think it's a platinum, but anyway, it's a platinum if you haven't heard otherwise. And that's the one we're going to focus on today, and it's about people inside, not necessarily about what the Crown Estate initially wanted as a co-working building, which are generally slightly too dense. 7 Eyre Street, so that was London's first Grade 2 listed BREEAM Outstanding, which was also with us and also with the Crown. So you can only be as good as your client. That's something we're always saying. We're fascinated by the WELL standard, the Fitwell, the BREEAM, SCAR. There's so many of them. LEED, but if there used to be sort of a paper accreditation. People were seeking out the certificate for the wall to sort of say this is the building we've designed, whereas now it's a more holistic approach. So the WELL, the BREEAM, everything's going together, which is really nice. Quadrant Arcade on Regent Street, that's about trying to reinvent retail space, which is changing drastically. So how do we do that with the people in mind rather than perhaps the rents in mind? UK Green Building Council, so we did that a while ago, probably 3 years ago, might be 4, and that was the lowest office fit-out carbon profiled, which is a nice accolade to have, but there's not enough office fit-outs that are carbon profiled. So it was hard for us. I'm not going to say it was easy, but if lots of people were carbon profiling their fit-outs, maybe we would have tried even harder. And that's the UK Green Building Council's offices. So the more people that do it, the more people that understand why it's important, which I'm going to come on to, the harder it gets and the better it gets. Grain House is a project we're working on at the moment in Drury Lane, which is going to be WELL Platinum, and it's BREEAM Outstanding, and we're also doing SCAR, and we're now doing Fitwell. But we're not going for the accreditations, which doesn't appeal to lots of people. We're just making lots of good decisions. So how will that be perceived in the market is a tough thing, because lots of people want to say we're occupying a BREEAM building, we're occupying a Fitwell accredited building, we're occupying a WELL accredited building. They're good stamps for a company. This is going to be a good building in London, but it won't have those stamps. So how will that be perceived? And then Tower House again. That was BREEAM. I think that was BREEAM Excellent, and we that was code for sustainable homes actually. But we crossed it over with the fit out, so it's got co-working in it, and retail, and residential, and office space, and we had to look at all those components. So it's the whole building. So we feel like we've got experience, and we've done it before. It's like a yellow rash, the Barr Gazetas rash. That's some of our projects in London, and I think the Crown Estate are very lucky actually, because they have a contiguous portfolio. They don't do one-off projects, which is they can actually monitor an estate and they can make big changes. So the only reason 7 Eyre Street was the first BREEAM Outstanding building is because it was part of a wider idea which has a fuel cell in it. A hydrogen fuel cell, is that right? Yeah. Which we plug into, which is incredible. But if one-off developments, smaller scale developments, don't have that backbone of infrastructure. So that's why it's more important that people like the Crown Estate, Grosvenor, British Land, all the large estates are leading, because they can have a bigger impact. I think the other thing, actually, I was looking at it this morning, the Architects Declare is a really interesting one. So I think we've all been talking about low carbon buildings, net zero buildings, being responsible, global change, climate change. We've been talking about it for years, so many years. And then this week it seems to currently be really important again. And I think, and it's sort of slightly arrogant of the people that are saying it's important, like the Architects Journal, for example, because it's a good plug, and it's current and it's topical again, but it's been topical for a long time. So I think we're quite keen to keep preaching it, and the more people that kind of listen, the better. So why do we see well-being as important? So the various strands of everyone's lives, living, working, trading is a big one, playing is a really big one. The well-being idea around it, and this metric changes a lot, but I think we spend roughly 10% of our lives at work. So, and depending on which data you look at, that's about 13 years. So we spend 13 years in an office building, which is it's a substantial length of time. And and I suppose we've probably all got jobs. We're all going to a work environment. So I think there's a huge importance on our employer, and the landlords of the buildings to make them good for us. We deserve it, right? We're spending 10% of our lives in these buildings, so it's important that they look after us. And if you look at design over the years, it is getting better, and it's definitely more people focused. But it's still way behind where it should be. It's much easier. I think you said it wasn't hard to achieve well-being platinum. Exactly. It's not hard. It's actually really easy. But it was the first one in Europe. So it's one of my favourite facts about 1 Heddon Street, which I'll tell you. I think so. You can rant about employers taking responsibility and estate owners taking responsibility. Our practice, we're a small practice. I think there's 35 of us at the moment. We do practice what we preach. So we monitor and we improve the air quality in our office. And we've only been doing that for 3.5 years. But it's made a difference. It's a much nicer place to work in. It feels cleaner. It feels fresher. We've got 42 plants apparently, but they all do a different thing. Some reduce carbon monoxide, some absorb dust particles. We've got 3D printers. We've got sort of machinery that produce, actually like a photocopier produces radiation. So we have a jungle around the photocopier. It sounds quite basic, but actually it actually makes a really big difference. We've got acoustic panels, so we want to try and think about what it's like. I mean, the acoustics in here are terrible, which is why we've gone silent disco. And I wonder how much fresh air is in here. Not very much. We've got mental health champions. That sounds strange, but we have I feel my company has a responsibility to look after we've got 35 lovely people in our office. So we have mental health champion, we have a program to support them. We have massages, not enough apparently, but we'll get there. And we have healthy food. So those are kind of things we do, and we're a small practice. The bigger you get, the more you can do. But all of those, every single thing on that slide is part of the WELL standard. So that's why I suppose I'm trying to emphasise how easy it is to achieve a well-accredited building, which means it's good for people inside. You make good decisions and you look after customers, people, then it naturally happens. So taking a step back, we had a quick look last week at our clients, because like I said, you can only be as good as your clients. 70% of our projects currently in the office are on the drawing board. We do about 30 a year, roughly. So 70% of them are focused on well-being. That might not necessarily be the WELL standard, although there are quite a lot of those. But it's about the people inside. So that feels like a good proportion, but obviously room for improvement. Jane touched on the various ways that you can measure how healthy a building is, or how good it is for people, which is, and I think I've said it as well, but the various accreditations you could seek have various ways of measuring a building. We thought, I mean, from my point of view, and I think the bigger you get, the more accentuated it is. 92% of employers' annual costs are about their staff. So if their staff are happy and healthy, that's going to come down. 80% of our clients get it, so there's still 20. We've got 20% left to go. Maybe we'll just stop working for them. I don't know, but we're nearly there. So that's a great ratio, and we're very lucky. We've got big clients, little clients, forward-thinking clients, and the ones that are not thinking about healthy buildings. They're going to be the ones with building stock that actually will be devalued as a result of it. So unlike an estate that can keep their assets long term, they don't have a short term sell strategy. So if you're keeping it, it's easier. If you're going to keep that, if you're going to sell that building, even if it's a short term redevelopment idea, the building's going to be more valuable now if it is healthy. I think that's the sort of the driver of this, and I think that's where we're all going. And then, the idea that 90% of our time is spent indoors is quite scary, really. And I think this venue is a prime example, isn't it, of how much fresh air there is in here. There's water available, which is great, but I don't know what the fresh air rate is. Hopefully not everyone's really sleepy. So what do healthy buildings have? I suppose that's the question. I hope you get the theme through this, which is that I'm trying to make it easy. I'm trying to simplify it, demystify it. I'm not sure we were allowed to put the costs up. I can't remember, but healthy buildings don't cost any more money either. That's a key. If you agree to do it at the beginning, there's no premium, so why would you not do it? So it's quite simple. In Heddon Street, it was very simple actually. It's got biophilia, which purifies the air and provides a visual link to nature, which is actually really important for our happiness. We feel, people feel happier if they can see nature. It's a sort of a certified metric. Active circulation is a really big one, and I think Jane touched on it. I think previously when we were designing buildings, you'd push to have the lifts visible, and the staircase would be at the back, and you wouldn't really promote people wandering up and down a staircase because it felt back of house. In fact, notoriously, probably the finishes were cheaper, and it was a definite kind of shy away from moving up and down with your legs. And I went around the building. I'm very lucky to be a BCO judge, so we get to see lots of buildings. And I went round one, and they had, I think, every flight of steps you do is, for the average person, about 70 calories burned, which is amazing. Why would you use the lift? Filtered water, as I pointed out, they've got it here. That's a crucial one to hydrate us. We are working hard. Lots of daylight. That's very, very subjective to the building, especially if it's an existing one, a retrofit building, which is the sort of the words of this week. Everything's retro first, but promoting daylight's important. So, and we've learned as a practice as well. I've been at Barr Gazetas 18 years, and I can remember several projects over 10 years ago where it was all about net gain, and we were filling in light wells, we were filling in we were finding as much net gain as possible, so that the developers, who are unnamed and not James, could make more money. But what we were taking away daylight, and this is only 15 years ago. It's brilliant. We refuse to do that now. We're not filling in light wells. We are extending buildings, and there's obviously a viability and an appraisal to go through, but we're not taking away what's rightfully ours, is how I see it, which is daylight. Comfortable environment, that's a really simple one. Acoustic panels, soft furnishings, no day glow colours. lots of companies we work for have strong brands, let's say, and it's very, when you implement a strong brand throughout an occupier's, throughout a floor, it can be quite scary, I think. And then, and I suppose the last one, healthy buildings would naturally have healthy people, and I think that's something that I think we forget. It's certainly worked in Heddon Street, so the wellbeing program. So we go over there as well. We're allowed to use the facilities, but the yoga, the meditation, there are mindfulness classes there. We have got an allotment as well. It's quite small, but naturally that you get healthy people in a healthy building, and that seems, this circular idea. If we create healthy buildings, we'll be healthier. I think this morning I heard on the news that the average age is currently in decline. I think that was, it's gone from, and that's very demographic. It depends what area you're in and demographic. But how can we be in an age of decline of our, when we were all taught at school we were getting older and causing a strain on the NHS because we're living longer. This morning that's not the case. Life expectancy is getting less. So it's a big issue that we're all working on. So a tiny bit about one Heddon Street. Very subjective, but healthy buildings look nice as well. But that's our opinion. But we think they're gentle. I think, and that's, I don't know how people feel, but I'd rather go to a gentle building than a loud building. So how was well designed in here? We were very lucky. Right from the start, the goal was to be well accredited, and the fact that I love about Heddon Street, and I don't think it's on here, is so I think there's something like 50 million square feet of co-working space with the office group, with WeWork, spaces by all of the big names and the smaller names, Labs, Crown Estate have entered into it. I think there's something like 50 million, and Heddon Street is 25,000 square feet, so a very small percentage of that. But it was the first project to seek accreditation, and that doesn't seem right, because they've been around over 10 years. We increased the filtered fresh air, so that was a very easy one. So more filters and more fresh air. So there's another air handling unit which provides much higher than here, but it provides, as you can see, an increase from 12 to 40. So and it's filtered and it's attached to a heat recovery system. So they do go hand in hand, because we're pumping more fresh air into a building, which is better for the people, but we're also recovering the heat loss from it and putting that back into the heating system. So the energy efficient buildings are also healthy buildings, because there's a circular motion going on. High quality materials without a VOC in it. I was trying to look around here earlier when I came in, who made the carpet. It's probably Milliken, so it will be fine. But what is in here? How healthy are the materials? The plasterboard, the paint, the lining on the ductwork. You can get healthy equivalents for everything nowadays, and they are no more expensive. So that's something we did there. I've talked about the biophilia, the connection to nature, seeing trees, touching plants. Everything's real. It's amazing how many offices you go around, and in fact I met someone the other day that had a biophilia expert, and they had chosen 12 fake plants for their office, which was pretty weird. We've encouraged the use of the staircases, so the lifts get used naturally, but people go up and down the staircases. There's two, they're on display, you can see them, that we've emphasised the signage to tell people where they are. And we could have done more. I think we could have had some really fun infographics or maybe revealed them even more so that they were really a heart. And then the flexibility in how you work. So that's very much sort of people think of that more as a co-working change or a cultural shift in how we want to work. We're all younger than people that used to only sit at desks, let's say. We're much more agile. So every desk in the place, every fixed desk in the place is 100% adjustable. So, tall, short, athletic, they are not, there's no discrimination between how you want to work. That's the nice thing. And actually I think a lot of people are working standing up more than expected, because it's a cultural shift. I mean, you see someone doing it and you start to do it yourself. It's quite nice. And we have it in our office, actually. I'm nearly there. So I suppose a healthy building has to have tangible benefits. Otherwise, we're not going to promote it well enough. We're not going to convince the 20% left of our clients that don't do it to do it. There are, there's real measured benefits. I think you've done the Leeson, which is far too expensive for us, but that's a real way of measuring the success of improving an environment. My less tangible ones are, there's a great and happy community. 1 Heddon Street is full, so it's 25,000 square feet of office space, and it was full 3 months after you opened it, so that's a good sign. It's got a great connection to the public, so this community that's using the office space are all around us, and it's had a positive impact on the retail, which I really like, because we're on Heddon Street in a sort of more traditional office, but you can see the retail's doing better. So this idea of community spreads from the building to the street. The mental health, the yoga, the meditation and the wellbeing classes, that's all having a positive impact. The flexible venue space is permanently booked out, which is quite annoying because we used to use it, but we can't anymore. I said this one, it's 100% occupied, so that's a great starting point. And it's light and bright. So they're all very simple. We do get it wrong, so and I think that's important, learning a lesson. So we were lucky, 1 Heddon Street, so Crown Estate's first co-working, the world's first well-accredited co-working space. Hopefully that's true. What did we get wrong? And we did get a few wrong, and some of them are quite simple. There's not enough wellness rooms. So what is a wellness room? It's not a room with a box of tissues, which I've seen lots. It's a room with fresh air and daylight and chair. It can be anything you want. It could have but there's not specifically enough awareness of people's mental health at work. I think we live stressful lives, and we go to work and we work hard. So there needs to be more of a recognition about people's mental health on a serious note, not on a sort of room with a box of tissues note. How can we help people? So that's quite a big one. The flexible offices, we thought we were infallible. We created 4-person, 8-person, 16-person, 32-person expandable rooms. The idea, you cut out the mastic joint, you make them bigger and smaller. That has worked, but we were not predicting how frequently they would change. So the idea of incubating small companies within 1 Heddon Street, and I think they've grown quicker. So perhaps I don't think they're flexible enough, because we're doing it more frequently than you're doing it more frequently than we thought. So how do we make so let's work really hard on making it really flexible next time, not sort of demountable, because they're two different things. The plant, so 1 Heddon Street's got It's got a huge sort of 4 meter high. I think it's 25 meters long. It's a ginormous green wall, growing, purifying the air, but it requires care, and I think it requires a specialist. It's not to be underestimated, and it requires specific type of light, 3 types of light, and it requires irrigation and nutrients. So, that's not. I'm sure that's being watered, but that will be probably dead in 3 days when we all leave tomorrow. But how do we keep them going for longer? The thermal comfort and light controls in the middle there, that's a really big one. So I don't think One Heddon Street responds enough to the people. So, we might want a lower level of light, and that's our choice. You might want a higher level of light. You might want a quiet room. You might want to. So I think we need to think more about our comfort when we're in an office building, not about perceived comfort. They want a meeting room, off they go, there's a meeting room with a door. So thinking more about people's sort of cultural changes. We're all very different. Better communication of the well-being. So we had to keep it a secret because we weren't sure we were going to get it, which didn't help us. So the less secretive the design is, the more we can draw on people's specialisms, the better it's going to be. Because we're architects, we're not well accredited architects. We're architects, so we draw on everyone's experience to make it better. It's a bit like the BREEAM Outstanding. That had to be kept a secret because we weren't sure we'd get that either. But I suppose as a practice, we want to be more honest, and then I think we'll get better, and the buildings will get better. So you don't always get it right, and we hope the next one will be even better. And then I think we're there. So there are benefits for buildings, and we thought everyone loves a metric, something tangible. And we've measured these with the help of specialists. So in One Heddon, there's an 11% increase in productivity. So actually it's quite strange. Some of our clients have actually moved into One Heddon Street, so we actually go over there for meetings. So we see it in use, and we see, let's say, other types of developers that are perhaps design buildings that are not. They're less worried about the people that will be in them because they're going to sell them. So you have a tenant in One Heddon Street that does that, who's one of our clients, but actually they're changing their ways because they have occupied One Heddon Street and they're more interested in healthy buildings. 27% reduction in depression, and there's better nutrition. So that's a survey that's been done on the occupant. I think there's 450 people that come in and out of this building. So 84% drop in eye strain and headaches, and I don't know how often that's due to being dehydrated, possibly. So the fact that there's filtered water available, it sort of helps us. Increase in chance meetings between people. That's about the agile working. Creativity and well-being with the biphilia. People love having meetings in the rooms with plants. In fact, we've got some trees in One Heddon Street, and unlike the ones in Apple, they don't go away to rest because we chose the right trees. And then the last one, so 33% of the staff are choosing where to work. This is an interesting one. There's a waiting list. One Heddon Street is oversubscribed, hopefully because it's so healthy. And that's it. And I think we're doing questions. Is that right, or not?
Is this okay? This is really weird. I can hear my voice. Does anybody have any questions? There are roving mics. I think there are 2 over there. I think. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
there. My name's Alan Stewart from Atelier 10. It's a environmental design and building services company. Out of interest in the buildings you've done with the well or towards well, I know lighting from my own background, lighting designer and electrical engineer, that it's a massive part of a building. Out of interest, how much of these buildings have the likes of circadian lighting integrated in them?
Hello, does this work? Oh, right, that is weird. One Heddon Street doesn't, purely a cost, unfortunately. We put it forward. The benefits are clear. You know, we're used to sunrise and sunset and a change in light. It's the spectrum, isn't it, that changes, or the colour temperature. We couldn't put it in. We tried. Of the four, I would say of the four aspirational projects we're working on in the office at the moment, all four of them have it in. I don't think you put it in.
No, so we didn't put it in St James's Market either, and I think it was on the basis of cost at the time.
So how do we solve that? Because we agree with you, it's hugely beneficial. So the market, the suppliers, we need to go and boycott the lighting suppliers and get them to produce it. It needs to be cheaper. I suppose that's about supply and demand. The more we demand it, I guess it'll come down. But we are looking at it currently. So it's on the schemes we've got now. But that's based on the artificial light, the daylight, obviously.
Okay. My name is Jeff Nunn. I'm from South London. I'd like to ask you, what are the pros and cons, in your opinion, of hot desking?
Well, it's a good question. I think the pros are that it's not. We don't have wasted space in the way that we used to. So when we were in our old office, when people were on holiday, you just kind of were left with an empty desk, and it wasn't the best. It wasn't the most utilized way of using our office. So I think that's definitely been a pro for us. Another pro that we've found is that different people are sitting in different areas. So even though we're actually not a big company, we're only 250 people, hot desking has enabled different people from different parts of the organization to sit together. There's more ideas and collaboration that's occurring in a way that wouldn't have happened if they weren't hot desking. So just meeting different people, I think that's been really great. Some of the cons, I think, there is a slight hygiene issue, if I'm being perfectly honest. So we have to make sure that the cleaners are on top of it in terms of cleaning, especially even if you think about some of the big challenges that are happening right now. But you can kind of overcome that by having things like wipes, etc., also available, making sure that the cleaners are on top of it as well. One of the other issues or challenges that we've had is that sometimes you don't know where other people are sitting, so having the sense of team becomes a little bit more challenging in a hot desk environment. So you have like the pro where you meet different people. You do have the con where you don't actually know where certain people are and you're trying to traipse around trying to find certain people. But we do try and overcome that by having neighborhoods, so we always have a couple of people that kind of anchor that area, so you know that if you're looking for X team, there is a representative at least sitting there, and they might be able to direct you to meeting that, finding that right person.
Yeah, I don't think I can add to that. I think the biggest pro I see, if you look at it globally, I think there's a study by Price Waterhouse. I think 40% of office space is empty. I think roughly, so that's 40% we don't have to build. So that's a big pro.
My name is Maria, and I'm an architect and well-accredited professional. I was wondering, in terms of the practical issues that you've been meeting while you were doing the project for 1 Heddon Street, what was the credential you found most difficult to cover? What was the thing that you faced as the biggest issue to actually comply with what was required?
That's a really good question. we had a few difficulties. I said it was really easy. In the background, obviously, it's quite hard. Daylight was a big one because it's a retrofit. It's an existing building. So we did some shell and core alterations to increase windows, but it's a Grade 2 listed building. So that was a constraint. So I think the hardest ones for BREEAM fit for all of these things are when you're working with existing stock, and that's why Retro First is the most important thing we're talking about this week. But we overcome it. We had to extend the roof to build a roof terrace so that we had external amenity space, which Westminster weren't particularly fond of at the beginning, because we had to alter a Grade 2 listed building. But we got there. So I think, and then I suppose for the well, I can see probably in hindsight why there's 50 million square feet of unaccredited co-working spaces, because you don't know who the people are or what their habits are or what their culture is. And the well accreditation is about the people, and you need to know a bit about them in order to achieve it. So, in the Crown Estate, they achieve well platinum, but they know who their they know who their people are. In one Heddon Street, we didn't have anyone on when we were going for it, so there was a lot of assumptions.
Thanks. Stephen Marks, I'm a consultant, Well AP. You meant great presentations, by the way. You mentioned in the last one, John, about creativity being up 15%. Just interested how you measure that, because it's difficult to, we hear about productivity, performance increases, and these are all very subjective tests. So just be interested to know.
Yeah, I'll be interested as well, actually. I'm a bit worried about that one. I hoped you didn't spot it. So the way that was measured, so we are lucky because we're on Heddon Street, so we've got a traditional office on Heddon Street. One Heddon Street is 100 yards away, so we pop in occasionally, and we know people that work there, and some of our other clients have moved there. So Schroders were in there, which is amazing. Why would Schroders go to a Crown Estate offices? And various other people, and I suppose the 15%, there's been some surveys done of the companies in there and their increase in, so the incubation, the change of their company successes, and it's about 15%. So it's this idea of nurture, a healthy product nurtures healthy growth. Growth normally comes from creativity. So it's probably slightly aspirational metric, but.
So, Toby Pruden, Focus FM. I had a question about One Heddon Street. You mentioned the increased filtered fresh air. I was wondering how you justify supplying 3 or 4 times the typical amount of fresh air. Obviously, we're talking about well-being, but we're also talking a lot about net zero carbon here today. How do you trade off that increased well-being with the extra energy consumption?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is where they don't work. That's where providing fresh air in a building doesn't work when you're providing an energy efficient building as compact as you can. We had that debate. I suppose we were seeking WELL Platinum accreditation. We've got WELL Gold. So part of and I think these are the things we're going to come across a lot. There's so many contradictions in what we're trying to achieve. Are you trying to achieve a a building that's brilliant for the people inside, or are you trying to achieve a energy efficient building? And there's so much crossover, and they don't work. So we decided to go for the increased fresh air. We did debate it, and actually it's one of the harder things as well to achieve, because you need larger air handling units. We were very lucky on this one that there was external space for those. So to be honest, that's a key issue that needs solving, definitely, and we're coming across it a lot at the moment. And it's not just on the fresh air. There's so many things that contradict each other, and like air leakage on a building. You get a credit if you it's a big contradiction.
Can I just ask a follow-up on that to Jane? I know the Crown has recently committed to net zero carbon. So how do you, as the landlord in this situation, allow fit outs to take place and refurbishments to take place, which are actually going to make it more difficult for you to meet that target?
It's a good question. I think we're very much at the start of that journey, and I think it is a journey at the end of the day. It's about making informed decisions where we can, and influencing where we can. I think it is going to be a challenge. I think it's important that we have those conversations. So as an industry, we tackle it. We're going to be facing the same issues, and as other people are as well. I know that doesn't quite answer your question, but we are in the process of setting out a roadmap in terms of how we actually go about achieving net zero.
Yeah, it's really. There's another point on that. Obviously, if you follow the BCO guide, it tells you to have 2.8 meter clear ceiling and but maximise your daylight. And I went round 30 buildings in the last month, and some of the buildings have got hero floors of 4 meters clear ceiling height. So why have they done that? That's roughly 35% more space that needs conditioning, which is but it's got great daylight. So there's a lot of contradictions, and we need to find that balance. There is a balance, and that maybe we should concentrate more on finding the balance than getting the BREEAM certificate, which says one thing, and the WELL certificate that says the other thing. Let's forget the certificates and go for the right decision.
Anybody?
My name is Tunji. I'm an architect. Thanks a lot for the presentation. Very good stuff. Just trying to understand how you can achieve the WELL certification and all that without major additional costs, as opposed to it looks like you've got a great landlord and client who's willing and able to afford additional costs that come with achieving this certification and all that.
I think I said there wasn't any additional cost, and I sort of stand by that. If it's part of the brief, I mean, you have to benchmark. We've got to do benchmarking and check that what's being spent is within a range of projects. But if it's in the brief in the beginning, like I said, the low VOC materials, they don't cost anymore. They're not a more expensive material. Having more fresh air, there was an increase in the main plant that was required, so that did cost more. But having filtered fresh, there was a requirement for filtered fresh water in the building. Having it in 3 locations rather than 1, I don't think it costs more if it's part of the brief, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I'd echo that as well. Where we have found an increased cost was for our development, the Mark, because it came in at stage 3, so we had to redesign the lobby area. But actually, when we did a bit of a gap analysis on all other areas. From memory, I don't think there was a significant cost if there was an additional cost. I think it was mainly the reception area and potentially a bit more around consultancy fees, but.
Yeah, that's true. You have to pay for the consultancy fees and for the accreditation fees. I don't know if there's anyone from Cundall's here, so I might get in trouble, but I think Cundall's offices were platinum accredited, no, gold accredited, and they produced some metrics. And what was that, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that? They produced a metric that said that the cost increase per person, so in their company inside, was about £100, something like that.
I mean, I also think it's important to look at it as a bigger picture. So is it going to let quicker? Are people willing to potentially even pay a premium on it? So it's not just looking at how much is it.
And it will last longer.
Yeah, will it last longer? So it's taking that holistic approach to how much does a building cost, rather than just the pounds per square foot.
Thank you.
Are there any final questions?
Thanks very much for listening.
Great, thank you.